There we go. Look at that. We are hip, hot, and happening. It is Drive Time Radio. It's New York Vinnie. Sorry, I had a technical error there. So for 2 minutes and change, you didn't get the beautiful speech that I laid out for you this morning. It's times like this when you realize how important an engineer is, how important the board operator at a radio station is, because they take care of all these things. I'm sitting here talking to you, and telling you all these great things that we're doing. And what's happening? It's not going out over the air. So I'm going to start it all over again. Welcome to this Saturday morning edition of Drive Time Radio. I'm New York Vinnie. We get a chance to spend an hour together every Saturday morning from 11 to 12 talking cars, which is what I love to do. We get to talk about them. We get to show you new stuff. We get to tell you 5 things that you need to know in the automotive business. What is going to get you, smart. We want you to be smart about cars. Local, national, international, electric cars, gasoline-powered cars. We cover them all. We tell you what the hot things that are going on in the business. We try to save you some money by giving you suggestions. We always are interested, if you're going to buy a car, in you getting in touch with me. And if I can help you buy that car or shoot you in the right direction to somebody that can help you buy that car, we do that. We try to make your automotive experience something better than it usually is. We try to make you leave this show on a Saturday morning smarter than you were when you got to the show, whether that be consumer-wise, whether that be automotive-wise, whether that be fun-wise, whether it be a fun fact, no matter what. We try to make sure that you leave smarter than you came in. So hopefully we will accomplish that for you this week. Coming up in the show in just a little while, we will talk to my good friend KIRBY ARNOLD, the fine writer, who writes now mostly automotive. We used to be baseball guys together in the press box for the Mariners, and both KIRBY and I left, and I picked up on cars, and so did he. So he is in Indianapolis this morning, where it's now the ramp up to the Indianapolis 500 that'll be coming up Memorial Day weekend, and we'll get a chance to get a kind of an idea of what's going on in that race. There are some teams with stuff to prove. There are some teams who are in the driver's seat. And there's one car that's going to pace the whole thing. And we're going to find out what the hubbub is about that. And KIRBY goes electric. We'll talk about that with KIRBY as well. He's got a little something. He surprised me with a little something this week. And I said, well, come on, let's talk about it a little bit. So we're going to do that as well. That'll be about 11:30 this morning. Sorry, my throat gets dry quickly ever since a few years ago. Excuse me. Anyway, so let's start off. Let's give you the top 5 this morning. Top 5 things that you need to know. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 8. We don't know, but we call it the top 5 because we're lazy. We don't want to change it every week. Anyway, one of the stories that came across my desk this week that I really thought was very cool is the fact that Honda has announced that they are going to jump into the electric fray. Honda has announced that they have a long-range plan to take the company electric. They're not going to eliminate gasoline engines altogether, but they see value in gearing up for the long term for electric. And electric is what is going to power automobiles in the future. And these companies have to be able to adjust to that. And so Honda is taking on a challenge. So you already see one of their vehicles out on the road. They're the electric vehicle that they share with Acura and General Motors. I haven't driven in one yet. The Prologue, I think it's called. I haven't driven in one yet. I've seen it. It looks like a good car. I can't wait to get my hands on one and drive it and let you know about it. But Honda getting into deeper into the electric business as well. And also, don't forget that Honda was the first one on the shore here with a hybrid vehicle. Everybody looks at the Toyota Prius, and certainly Toyota has been the most successful in hybrids. But Honda, with the Insight, a year before the Prius was here, I think, was something that really turned people on. Now, the ZDX, which is the Acura version of this vehicle, is going to be the pace car at the Pikes Peak Hill Climb in, I believe that's late June. And, well, this is causing a lot of consternation again because a lot of the cars that are going to be in this thing are gasoline-powered cars, if not all of them, and they just scratch their head and say, why are we using a Pikes Peak Hill Climb pace car that is electric? But the Acura ZDX is going to have that honor, and it will be very interesting to see the reaction and how that works out. Matter of fact, Honda, when we were talking about electrics, their all-wheel drives, Honda, is on the way soon. They are talking about putting 2 million EVs on the street each year by 2030. So if you're one of these people who say, well, I don't like electric cars, I'm sticking with my gasoline engine car, that's all well and good, but your options are going to be limited as we move into the next decade. And we were talking about Toyota a couple of minutes ago. They are putting out their first electric pickup truck. The Hilux, which is the name for the old compact Toyota pickup trucks. I had one, was the first Toyota compact pickups they brought over here. But Toyota is not going to sell it in the United States. I believe that truck is going to be even made in Mexico. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think they're going to make it in Mexico. But it's not going to get into the United States. We'll see how that, kind of breaks out at its ultimate, because Toyota is not going to give up their truck spot. And I think that these smaller trucks are the wave of the future. I'm driving one this week. We'll show it to you on Yo Vinnie. What are you driving this week? In just a couple of minutes. And I got to be honest with you, I love the thing. If you don't need a gazillion pounds of truck in front of you and behind you, these are great little trucks. Now, I know to some people you got to have you do heavy construction work, you do this, you do that, you tow trailers, you tow your mobile home, you tow this, you tow that. Great. You should have a truck. If you want a truck like that, you should have a truck. But imagine if you're one of these people like me that live in the city, love pickup trucks, but you don't want that Jagunda truck. You want something small, something functional, something that you can take to IKEA, something that you can take to Home Depot, something that you can take to, to stores and pick stuff up that you don't want to normally put inside an SUV. Maybe it's too tall to get in the back door, whatever. Well, here you go. And if you need that big truck, you can always get out to U-Haul or Home Depot and rent it, right? I mean, do you need it all the time? And at 42 miles a gallon, there's quite a substantial savings over that that Chukunda pickup truck that gets, I don't know, 10, 12, maybe 14. Something to think about. Speaking about electrics and non-electrics, Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, was talking to some media this week saying that you will not see, and I should have saved this for Kirby because he's a Mustang guy. He's got a beautiful old Mustang. You will not see an electric Mustang. Now, yes, you have the Mustang Mach-E, which a lot of people don't consider a Mustang. I mean, it says Mustang on it. It has the horse jumping on it. So to me, it's a Mustang. I mean, it looks like a Mustang, although some people say it doesn't. But that all-electric vehicle came out as a Mustang. They used Mustang to bring it out because it was a familiar name to people, and they needed some familiarity a few years ago when they brought the vehicle to market. And they thought that Mustang was the best way, and it's not a bad vehicle. I like the Mustang Mach-E. I mean, it's quick, it's comfortable, you save a ton of money on gas, and I think it's a really nice vehicle if you want to live right now what I call the automotive pioneer lifestyle, where you're like an automotive pioneer. You're willing to live with the anxiety of wondering if that charging station that you're heading to is working. You're willing to live a little bit with that anxiety of it. Will there be electric available where I'm driving? Can I make it cross country? Can I stop? And in a place where I can recharge? Is there and really what it comes down to is planning ahead of time. I am not a good ahead of time planner. I don't do that well. But I still have had very few incidents with the electric trucks or electric cars that I've driven. And when I've had an incident, it's not been the truck or the car. It's been the charging system. Now, hopefully, with the availability now of the Tesla superchargers, some of that's going to be alleviated. But as far as Jim Farley says, the CEO of Ford, that the Mustang is going to remain an ICE, internal combustion engine vehicle. You will not see an electric version. To quote him, one thing I can promise is that we will never make an all-electric Mustang. He says that wouldn't be right for Mustang. He plans to keep the V8 alive in the Mustang for as long as possible. And that they can do that because of the Mustang Mach-E, because of the carbon credits, the offset in emissions that they get from that particular car. What I also found interesting in this little article, that was an interview that was done with Autocar last month at Goodwood, is that Farley kind of backed away from the Mustang Mach-E being a Mustang. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they were touting this as a Mustang. Now, not so much. But they're going to have to compete. The redesigned Charger from Dodge is going to be an electric car, and that is going to be both a coupe and a sedan. So you'll get the Charger in a sportier version and a four-door version. And this week, and actually for a while now, there have been whispers that the Camaro is going to make a comeback. Nobody seems to know yet what will power the Camaro. But if I was a betting man, and I can be it sometimes, I would say that there is an electric Camaro, an electric performance version. They already have an electric Corvette that will be at Indianapolis this weekend or in 2 weeks. So may as well get used to the idea that you're going to see a whole new breed of electric performance cars. That rumble of the internal combustion engine, that feeling you get when you sit in that seat, and it's boom, 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 like that. In 50 years, will be something that will only be seen at car shows. So that's kind of the update from the electric world. That what you probably will see with the Mustang is some kind of hybrid. Wouldn't shock me, because these hybrids work well in performance situations, especially in drag racing situations. The torque that you get from that electric motor that immediately delivers the power to the wheels instead of having to go through a transmission is phenomenal. If you've ever driven an electric car or ever ridden in one, when you hit that button and you hit the gas, that thing flies. I mean, it's not uncommon for these things to get up to 60 miles an hour in 4 seconds. So that's the latest. It'll be interesting to watch the development of the Mustang and where they will take this iconic brand, iconic nameplate, Will Ford. All right, what else is going on? If you're a NASCAR fan, you're going to get a treat in 2025. Amazon Prime has announced that they are doing a 4-part docuseries covering the life of Dale Earnhardt Sr. Be titled Earnhardt. According to Amazon Prime, it'll feature unparalleled access and never-before-seen archival material. And as you probably may know or may not know, NASCAR is going to start going full tilt boogie on NASCAR in May 2025, starting with the Coca-Cola 600. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has been signed on to be one of the commentators, and it'll be interesting to see how NASCAR and how Amazon Prime handle this. For the regular old NASCAR viewer, I wonder what's going to happen as far as paying to see the races. You don't get Amazon Prime for free unless you're an Amazon Prime member. So does this now mean that eventually, to watch your NASCAR race on a Sunday, you're going to have to pay to see that race? It's not out of the question that could happen. We already have to pay to see the Mariners now. You have to pay to see baseball. You have to pay. You have games on streaming services that are going to, you're going to have to pay to see. In the NFL, I think the Christmas Day games, if I'm not mistaken, are on not pay-per-view, but one of the streaming services. So if you are looking to, if you're a NASCAR fan, this is your future. You're going to get some good material. You're going to get some streaming material, but you're going to have to pay for it. So start putting your money in the piggy bank, because you're going to need it. At least, what is Amazon Prime? $9 a month. I have the senior version of it, so I think it's $6 a month or something like that. And not that it's a bad service. It's just there's something about paying for sporting events that used to come over free TV that chafes me a little bit. All right, finally this morning in our top 5, would you like to name a street Have you ever driven down the street and said, boy, I would like to name that street? Well, the folks in Mukilteo are going to give you a chance, as the city of Mukilteo is collecting feedback on potential names to replace Mukilteo Speedway, which is State Road 525, from Beverly Park Road to First Street in Mukilteo. As the origin of the name Mukilteo Speedway remains unclear, they want to change it. I don't know why. I mean, Mukilteo Speedway, I think it's kind of a cool name myself. It does, I guess, if you're a pinhead, you probably think, oh, yeah, that's a license for me to go up there and drive my car as fast as I can. They have 4 proposed names: Mukilteo Point Elliott Highway, Mukilteo Lighthouse Parkway, Mukilteo Salish Sea Parkway, and the Mukilteo Salish Highway. Those are the 4 names that they are considering. And you can go on the website at Mukilteo Wa and name, put your preference. But there's also a space here, if you want, for your own name suggestion. You can actually turn this into, you could say, okay, I think it should be named after General Spankin' Pants, or, Civic Leader Smoking It, if you got him. You can put that down here and they will consider it. Probably want to send them, get a whole bunch of your friends to do it too. And consider that. But if there's a name that you think the Mukilteo Speedway should have, you can write it in here and vote on that. Personally, I'd leave it Mukilteo Speedway because of the expense that people are going to have in changing their stationery, changing the signs, all of that. And I don't think Mukilteo Speedway is a bad name. I actually think it's a pretty good name. I mean, how many streets in America are named Speedway? I think there's one in Tucson, Arizona, if I'm not mistaken, that's named Speedway, just Speedway. I'd have to check that to make sure. But there can't be a whole hell of a lot of streets in the city of, in the United States that are named Speedway. Maybe we should check on that. All right, we get a chance now. Actually, quickly, before we bring Kirby Arnold in, we quickly have to, of course, do one of my favorite segments of the week, which is...
Yo, Vinnie, what are you driving this week?
There you go. What am I driving this week? This is the 2024 Ford Maverick Lariat front-wheel drive hybrid. This is the truck I was telling you about before, and I think this truck is great. Number one, it's the right truck at the right time. If you don't want to have that big truck, this is something that it'll fit in your garage. It'll fit in a parking space. It's easily manageable, and it's hybrid, so it's going to give you 42 miles per gallon, according to the EPA, the figures from the EPA. You open up the bed. It's lined. It's small, but it has lots of neat little things in there, like a storage space, like movable things that you can use to tie down, and it has electric. You got an inverter there, so you can power your house with this truck if there's a blackout, which is always something that's handy to have. The hybrid setup gives you 190 horsepower. The interior on this thing is done really well. It's simple. It's has jacks and plugs, storage spaces all over the place. And the seats are comfortable. They're a little bit Spartan, but they're comfortable. And I think that's in a truck like this, that the low price on the truck, if you buy a stripped down model, you're looking at $25,000. Now, I know it's tough to get one for that, but this particular one is a $32,000 truck, $35,000 truck. And and I think as far as trucks go, as I was saying before, this is a godsend. This is a small truck that's easily maneuverable. It's comfortable as a car inside, and it doesn't take you to the bank on gas. And the hybrid is even better. So that's we'll have a full review of that in upcoming edition of Drive Time with the Drive Time Radio road test. Matter of fact, I'm going to take it out today and give it a nice road test. But again, Ford, I think, from what I see so far, and I've only had it a couple of days, hits the mark with this particular truck. All right, let's go to Indianapolis, Indiana, and our good friend Kirby Arnold, who is in Indianapolis and hanging out with us in a rubber room.
This literally is a rubber room, but it's the only quiet place I can find here. So you talk about the Mukilteo Speedway. I'm sitting in a town named Speedway, Indiana. So
now, are there any streets there named Speedway?
No, a lot of the streets are named after Allison and Auburn and that sort of thing. They're
as they should be.
It's an automotive town, but I lived in Mukilteo, and I'm like you. I'm not sure what's wrong with the word Speedway. So if I had a choice, I would rename it Mukilteo International Speedway. Let's just do that.
Yeah.
Go all the way.
Maybe the people with boats called up and complained. Say, wait a minute, why don't we call it Mukilteo Boatway?
That or somebody didn't have enough to do. So
right. One of my favorite Popeye cartoons. And I'm a big fan of Popeye. There's a Popeye cartoon where Olive Oil sings a song called "Leave Well Enough Alone."
Right. Yeah. There you go.
And I think those are words that would straighten this country out to a certain degree. If we just left, what is the reason that you're going to change this? Give me a reason. It's not an offensive name. Mukilteo Speedway. I don't know. How are you, pal?
I'm great. How about you? It's good to see you again.
Good to see you too, man. How is how are you like? You always love Indianapolis. I know that this is like the highlight. Well, I don't know if it's the highlight of your year because I don't, but it's pretty well up there on the things that you get to do every year.
Yeah, it's really special to come here. This is the first time I ever set foot on this place was 1974. So 50 years ago this month.
Wow.
Is when I made my first trip to Indy, and the goosebumps are just the same when I walk into this place as they were 50 years ago. So it's really cool, and I'm really blessed that I've just gotten into a profession where I can, even though I'm retired from the daily grind of newspaper work, I still have enough connections where I can write for a couple of websites and come here for a couple of weeks every May.
And you're the star of the show on Drive Time Radio. That alone would probably
everybody asks about it. Yeah.
Oh man. So, well, first of all, congratulations on 50 years of participating as far as media in the race. In those 50 years, have you ever gotten a chance to drive around the track?
Never drive myself, but I have obviously been around it in some tour buses. But one of the highlights of my life was 1983. This is a bit of a story, but I was working in a newspaper in Springfield, Missouri, and I'd been to Indy, a few years by that time. And I'm sitting there probably typing in bowling scores early one morning for the afternoon newspaper. And I looked over to our sports editor's desk, and there was an older man there talking to him. And I could tell our sports editor was irritated, trying to get rid of him. And so the sports editor says, "Give me your name and number, and we'll see what we can do." And the guy says, "Yeah, my name is Duke Nayland, and this is my number." And I perked up. I said, "Wait a minute, you're Duke Nayland?" Duke Nayland is one of the most famous names in all of Indianapolis 500 history. He drove the old Novi, way back when. So I said, "Marty, who's my sports editor, I'll take care of this." Well, I sat down with Duke, talked to him. He was the pace car driver that year, driving the turbocharged V6 Buick in 1983, and he was driving from his home in Arizona to Indianapolis in one of the pace car replicas, and he was basically barnstorming like they used to do back in the day. And he would stop at along the way to Indianapolis. He would stop at as many radio and TV and stations and newspapers as he could, and just try to put the word out about the Indy 500, the Buick pace car, and all of that. So we took him to the local speedway, took photos, interviewed him, wrote a story. And then when we got done, he asked, when are you going to Indianapolis? I said, well, I'll be there the first weekend of qualifying. I get there on Thursday. He says, after practice, when you get there, meet me at the start finish line where the pace car is. I said, okay. I had no idea what he meant, but practice had gotten rained out. So it was about 2 p.m. I went down there, sitting there. Here comes Duke with the pace car. He says, get in. And the track was still wet. And we probably did 10 laps around this place at the time. And I think, 140 is what we were doing around the straightaways. And, this is such a big place. It's 2.5 miles around this place. The turns are so long and sweeping as you see them on TV or see them with the naked eye. But when you're going into a corner, as fast as Duke was, it felt like a tight little on-ramp to the interstate. And it was you get actually a few G-forces with that just in that pace car. So that was fun. And then we got done with our ride. I thanked him, and he says, what are you doing tomorrow morning? I said, oh, I'm just going to come and watch qualifying. And he says, meet me at 8:00 here at the pace car room. So I met him there at the pace car room. He took me around town that day. First, he took me to the Speedway Motel restaurant. We sat down, had breakfast. There was at one table, there was A.J. Foyt. Another table was Johnny Rutherford, Don Cock, Foyts, Unzers. Everybody who was everybody in this sport was there having breakfast before qualifying started that day. And then from there, Duke took me to the restoration shop just off the backstretch and introduced me to the two old guys who restored all the old Indy cars, Indy 500 cars. I got a tour of that. Then he took me around town to some of the race shops where a lot of Indy cars, sprint cars, and things were being built. And he just took me on the town. And like I say, it was one of the highlights of my life. And I actually wrote a story about that for IndyCar.com when I was writing for them a few years ago, just about what Indy means, basically, and how just kind of a chance meeting like that, what can turn into, no matter what you're into, a chance meeting. And when you just get to know people or introduce yourself to people, you never know what it's going to turn out like. And it became one of the great memories of my life.
Well, Kirby, I'm going to, at the risk of exposing you here, I'm going to say that when you're kind to people, good things happen. One person saw that guy and wanted to get rid of him. Another person comes over, talks to him, and all of a sudden, because you show him a little kindness, something good happens. It's
it works out that way.
The world is supposed to work, isn't it?
That's the way it works. Yeah.
Well, man, that had to be a thrill of a lifetime to just to see it from that perspective, and to walk into that
right.
hotel and see all those greats. I mean, that's like you walk in there, that's like seeing Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and every
exactly.
all of the Hall of Famers sitting in one place.
Exactly.
It's for a racing fan, for a car fan. Those are names that you hear about when you're a little kid. Before this was all on TV, when you had to listen to it on the radio and you were a little kid, those are names that mean so much. What a thrill that must have been.
Yeah, no, it truly was.
How is it there this week? I mean, everything's getting cranked up. They're in the first practice runs and everything like that. Let me ask you, first of all, what team is got something to prove this year? What is there a team that's?
I think it's Team Penske. And right now, the qualifying is going on right now, the first day of qualifying, and as we sit here, at least as as I left it about 20 minutes ago, Team Penske, all three of Team Penske's cars are in the first three positions after the first qualifying runs. So they're strong. What do they have to prove? They have to prove that they're still strong. They went through the controversy within the last few weeks of the push to pass issue, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but they got caught. Some people would say they were cheating. Penske's are saying it was a somewhat honest mistake where they were able to utilize their push to pass system on the road course at St. Petersburg at the opening race at a time when that system should not have been available to use. Whether they found a workaround or whether they forgot, or they saying that there was some code in their programming that they forgot to remove after some testing. Whatever the reason is, Joseph Newgarden's victory was wiped out. Scott McLaughlin's finish was wiped out, and Penske wound up suspending 4 of their key personnel because of that. So they went into the month of May here at Indy, which is the biggest month on the schedule. Kind of, I wouldn't say down a little bit, but there's a lot of questions about how are they going to perform here. And right now they've been fast all week in practice, and today they're fast in qualifying. They're in the top 3 positions.
So that's good news for Penske, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess sometimes when you the rules sometimes, and I know they change, but you got to know the rules, and you got to go. I mean, this is a sport where so many people are looking, so many people are checking. It's all on computer now, so it's not that hard to figure out if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, well, exactly. Just like today, Team McLaren, one of their cars times was disqualified because of the tolerance on an offset on the left rear wheel was probably millimeters off, but it was outside the tolerance that was allowed. So, it was just, I don't think it was anything they were trying to pull. They just said that the spacer that they put on there was just not quite milled down quite right. But the tolerances that they operate by are so tight here, and you got to go right up to the limit to be fast. And like they used to say in racing, if you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough too. So I've got some old NASCAR friends who tell me some great stories about the things that they pulled. They would always do something on their car that was obviously out of spec and against the rules, which they were hoping that the inspectors would catch. They would catch that so they wouldn't catch the real thing that they did to the engine that would make them so much faster. So all kinds of tricks.
Never got wise to that, did they?
Yeah, all kinds of tricks that they pull, and I'm sure they're still going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's one of those. I mean, listen, you're talking about a sport where, it's gone into so much regulation from a group of people who didn't have a lot of regulation.
Right.
Who back in the 60s and the 50s, you didn't have all of that. They're trying to, I don't know what the right word is, I guess, but they're trying to standardize the sport for everybody. And sometimes, the older people that are involved in the sport, they're scratching their head and going, "What the heck? What are we doing here? We're doing this because we love being cowboys."
Right. Currently the IndyCar series, especially, is a spec series. Everybody drives the same chassis. You either have a Chevy or a Honda engine, and there's very little room for manipulation, that the teams can do. You can do aero tweaks. You can do things to the shocks or the dampers, as they call them. Back in the day, I remember sitting on pit wall in like 1980 down here after some pretty tight regulations were put in place to decrease the horsepower and decrease the turbocharger boost to pull back speeds. And yet they were going faster. And I remember asking one of the chief mechanics, how is it you guys keep going faster despite all the rules that are meant to slow you down? He says, that's what our jobs are. you're never going to get ahead of us. If you make us pull back on this, we will find another way to go faster. That was back when the mechanics and engineers could do so many things to the cars, but now it's a much more spec series.
Yeah, I mean, with computers and software and everything that's involved now, it's harder to tweak and do this and do that. Kirby Arnold is with us live from Indianapolis, where he is covering the Indianapolis 500. That will be a week from Sunday.
Right.
A week from Sunday, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a week from tomorrow. Yep.
My time's mixed up.
I know.
Chip Ganassi and his team seem to have so far had a nice pre-qualifying and everything. What's their secret sauce?
Well, I don't know. Their secret sauce is they are just, they're a big organization it's kind of the Ganassi and the Penske thing. So, but actually they've struggled. I don't know if struggle is quite the word, but they're down on speed a little bit this month. And I just noticed that Scott Dixon went out and qualified, and he's only 17th on the chart now. So they're not going to, it doesn't look like they're going to compete for pole position, but I wouldn't put it past them. Even if their cars start outside the top 3 rows or in the mid pack or whatever, they're so good at their racecraft and their race strategy and everything that I think that they'll move up during the race. So you can't count them out at all. Although Penske has been, like I said, fast all month, so I think they're probably the team to beat.
How hard is it if you don't start in those first 3 rows to, come up and win this race?
It used to be you had to start pretty much in the first 3 rows to have a chance, but anymore, Joseph Newgarden started fairly far, mid-pack last year and won the race. So basically, these, the racing is so close now. It used to be, Rick Mears won by a couple of laps in one of his victories, and that was the margin of victories. Was a half a lap, 1 lap, 2 laps, or whatever. Where now the margin of victories is hundreds, if not thousands, of a second. So that's how close the racing is. So they can, if they just stay in touch with the leaders and are clean on their pit stops, work the strategy right, maybe get a little bit better fuel mileage, what have you. But by the time the last 20 laps come by, if they're in that lead pack, they've got a chance as good as anybody. So.
It's so much fun to watch, to try to see somebody that didn't start up there try to come up and get their way into that into the first couple. I know that I've been reading, and I have to plead guilty to this. I read it because it involves David Letterman, but Ray Hall Letterman had what I read was a terrible year last year for some reason.
It was a horrible year. Yeah, they Graham Rahal was bumped from the race. Didn't make it. There was, I think there were 35 entries last year, and he was bumped out of the 33rd spot. So he did not have he lost his ride. Now, what happened? He wound up racing in the race when Stephen Wilson suffered a crash in the Monday practice after qualifying and was injured. So Graham actually was hired by that team and drove in the 500 himself then. But Ray Hall, the whole team struggled last year, and they're, it's hard to tell now, but they've been a little bit down on speed this week. We'll see what happens in qualifying today. But I know they made a lot of changes to their organization, and we're really hopeful of coming in here and having a real strong month. But, I think it's been different. There's been a lot of rain this week in practice. Some teams haven't had quite the amount of laps that they'd like to have. And so it's hard to say. We'll say, by the end of the day tomorrow, we'll see how it all shakes out. I think the Rahals will be safely in the race. But as far as being up in those top 3 rows or so, might be difficult.
And again, as we were saying, tough to do something if you're not up there. There's now I was reading this. You're going to have to tell me a little bit about this, as I'm sure that you know. I was reading somewhere that the IndyCar circuit and everything is starting to test hybrids. They're going to start using hybrids.
Right. Yeah, they've
What's
actually, that's been in the works for a while. They did it. They've in the past year they've done extensive testing, and the hybrid units will go into the cars in July at the road course race at Mid Ohio. So they were hopeful of introducing the hybrids, this year from the get go, but they put that off, and a lot of it I think had to do with supply issues and things like that. But they, so yeah, we're going to have hybrids in the IndyCar series beginning in, I think it's the 12th of July, something like that, at the Mid Ohio race in Ohio.
So we'll see him. Will we see him next year in Indianapolis?
Yeah, it should be. Right.
What has there been any kind of driver reaction or?
I think they're all positive with it. Yeah. So, I think it's push a button, you get some extra horsepower and that sort of thing. But yeah, I think the drivers who have tested it have been pretty happy with, especially most recent test, the reliability of the units and everything. So, yeah, it's to the traditionalist and a lot of the old school people, it's something that they might not want to see, but it also moves us into where the automotive industry is going. Hybrids. I mean, this year, the Corvette E-Ray is the pace car for the race. And if you listen to that car leave pit road when it first launches, it's silent until it gets down the road a little bit, and then the V8 kicks in, and it sounds like a real Corvette again. So, yeah, the hybrid and electric technology is coming. How far it goes, I don't know. I know full electrification in this series is somewhat a touchy subject. I learned that a couple of years ago when I wrote a story about whether there would ever be an all-electric Indy 500. And number one, the people with the IndyCar series would not talk to me about it because their mantra is fast and loud. Yet people with the race teams said, "Oh yeah, we think it's coming." In fact, Michael Shank, who of Michael Shank Racing, told me he had this is 2 years ago. He's already had his people working on electric technology so they can understand how to safely work on those types of vehicles. Mike Hull with Ganassi said it's coming. There's no doubt. My big question is, what about the traditionalists around here who, number one, they like the sound, and the sound of an Indy car going down the front straightaway at this racetrack is unlike anything you'll ever experience. You hear them coming out of turn 4, the crescendo. They go by you in turn 1, and then you can as they're disappearing in turn 1, the echoes of that engine come bouncing off that grandstand are still there in your ears, and it's like I said, unlike anything you hear anywhere. What about the sound? I asked Mike Hull about that. What about the sound? And he says, you know what? Sound at Indianapolis is generational. The sound that we hear today is different than the sound that we heard in the 80s when the high-pitched Cosworth engines, let's say, were going down the straightaway. That sound was different than the sound of the Offenhausers in the 60s and 70s. So sound is generational. And who's to say, probably, likely not in our lifetimes, but who's to say 40, 50 years from now, the sound at Indy, if somebody brought an internal combustion engine and drove it down the track, who's to say that would not sound really weird to the people of that era? So interesting take.
Electric cars will be much more of a common thing, and people like us that love that engine sound will be gone.
Oh yeah, and, and believe me, I got a lot of. I was contacted through email and text and everything on social media by a lot of people who suggested I get in my Prius and go home and shut up. But I had to inform them that I've got more gas guzzling vehicles than most anybody, So and I like my 69
Mustang. I'll show you how much my Prius.
That's right. Yeah, the Costco gas pumps love me.
Exactly. That's something I don't get. I would think that, racers and people have always been in the automotive business. I've always seen, have always been reaching out for innovation. I mean, you think about the speed shops in the 50s and the 60s. You'd go there and you'd buy Iskandarian cams and hooker headers and things that would advance the technology of the car. Remember when MSD ignitions came out, the electronic ignition?
Yeah.
I mean, they always advanced the technology. Well, this is the natural advancement, but yet so many people especially in racing are so not just against it, but like not violently, but vehemently against it. I mean, it's really amazing sometimes to see that disdain for it.
Right. Yeah. And I'm kind of feeling it a little bit firsthand myself, because I recently purchased my first electric vehicle, and most people are very accepting of it, but especially talking around some races. A couple of days ago, I was talking to Rick Mears about it, and he kind of shook his head. He says, I don't think I could ever go there. It says, I need a gas engine. I said, Rick, but the performance on this thing is unreal. I've never driven anything with this kind of horsepower and torque. And when you launch from a dead stop, it's unbelievable. And he says, "Oh, I get it. I'm not saying it's not good. I don't know that it's me." So,
yeah, it's amazing how powerful they are. And I was going to ask you about this because I know you just bought a Cybertruck, which is the Tesla Cybertruck. So if you see somebody driving up and down Aurora, we know who it is.
Yeah,
I can't wait to see it.
Of them out there.
I can't wait to see it. What's the reaction that you've been getting so far from?
I tell you the reaction. Yeah, the reaction I'm getting is almost all positive. Very inquisitive. Most people, especially older people, have no idea what that is. They say, "What is that?" I said, "Well, it's a Tesla Cybertruck." "What is that?" They've never heard of it. I thought, well, I didn't realize it was that out of mind, but yeah. And it looks very strange. I had a neighbor across the street tell me it's the ugliest thing he's ever seen in his life. I had another guy, we were at a thrift store in Stanwood a few weeks ago, and another old guy. And there's actually, when I came out of the thrift store, there had to have been 6 or 7 people just walking around it taking pictures. Course, which I don't mind. I would be doing the same thing, but
you can't go anywhere now in under an hour.
Right? You got to. That might be the biggest drawback, is if you're going to take your Cybertruck anywhere, you better block out an extra 20 minutes for every stop you make. But so anyway, one guy walks by me and he just looks at me and he says, "I hope you can get your money back." I said, "Okay, well, it's too late now." And then I'm sitting in it, still talking to some people. He walks back out, and as he walks past me, he says, "I hope you're not going to haul gravel in that thing." And I said, "You know what? You're right. I won't, because I got a truck just like yours that I'm going to haul gravel in." So, but no, it's, I mean, I like cool cars and trucks, and I've got several, ranging from a 69 Mustang to an 03 Corvette to, a GL 450, and I love them all for what they are. And the Cybertruck is, performance wise and comfort wise, is at the top of the heap right there. I don't think nothing will replace my 69 Mustang, but it's big. It is ugly, if you say. I don't care, but it's different. And but my gosh, it's fun to drive. The steering is the wire, the steer by wire is, you go lock to lock without even taking your hands off the wheel. Braking is great. The handling is unbelievable, and it's comfortable. So you could go on a long road trip and really not feel it. So for a big rig, it feels more like a sports car.
Well, I'm excited to look at, and I hope you'll take me. I'll pay you to take me for a ride. I mean,
okay.
I'll give you.
Well, yep. We'll start the bidding. Yeah. All right.
Hey, Kirby. Thanks so much for jumping on with us and giving us a sketch of what's going on at Indianapolis. Good luck there. Have fun, and let's chat back and forth during the week, man.
We'll do that. Good to see you again, Vinnie. Take care.
Good to see you too, Kirby. Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Bye.
There's our good friend Kirby Arnold joining us here on Drivetime Radio. He is at Indianapolis and is keeping an eye on what's going on there. He goes, as you heard, he goes almost every year, and he's been going since 1974, so his 50th year. It's going to be, it's one of those things where maybe I don't know everybody that's in the race and every rule, and like Kirby does, but I enjoy on that Sunday sitting down and watching these guys compete. I've enjoyed it since I've been a little kid, and it's just because it's America. Indianapolis, the Indianapolis 500 is one of those things that, to me, is uniquely American. It just symbolizes that that unique thing that we as Americans and that love affair with the automobile that we Americans have and have always had, or since the beginning of the 20th century have had. And it's the one way we manifest that love, and we show that love off every Memorial Day weekend. And in this day and age where so many things are changing, so many of the things that we knew, we don't know anymore. The Indianapolis 500 remains, like the Kentucky Derby earlier in the month, one of those things that you hope will not change. You hope that they will never not pour milk on their heads, the winner of the race. You hope that it won't change, that there'll always be, the sounds may change and certain things may change, but you hope that there will always be an Indianapolis 500 on Memorial Day weekend, and that you'll sit down and you'll take a gander at it and see what it's all about, because it's something that, as an American, is uniquely us. We own it, and there's Le Mans and this and that and all this racing all over the world, but the Indy 500 is American. And in a time where so much of American stuff seems to be falling apart, again, we mark another year. Seeing the Indianapolis 500 run, I think it's a beautiful thing, and something that we always hope that we have for us as Americans. All right, let's do our Drive Time Radio road test before we pack it up and get out of here for the week. This is the Kia EV9 Land. And I'm going to tell you something. Kia and Hyundai, but Kia especially, has the electric vehicle thing down. This is a full-size 3-row SUV that is simply spectacular from every angle. Design-wise, driving-wise, space-wise, any wise that you want to go on this car, this vehicle is off the charts. It is a vehicle that you get in it to drive it, and you feel the future. You feel the love that the designers put into this vehicle and the textures that you see in the different parts of the interior, from the carpets to the speakers to the dashboard to the screen that sweeps all across. There was thought put into this vehicle when it was designed. Thought that was put into this vehicle when it was manufactured, to the point where, as you saw before, a little piece that comes up from the driver's seat to rest your legs while you're charging. The third row in this thing is maybe one of the most accessible third rows I've seen in a vehicle. Look at how easy it is to move that seat up and get into that. And look at the space back there. Kia also puts a ton of plugs and USB ports stuff back there so that your passengers aren't, have the right stuff they need to take a long trip. But whether it's a long trip or a short trip, this vehicle's Kia EV9 is spectacular. People stop and look at it. The design of the dashboard and the wraparound was really paid nice attention to. It is comfortable. It is easy to get into. It is well thought out. It is just a vehicle that when you drive this thing, when you spend time in it, you want to spend more time in it.
Okay, go ahead.
Also, something about doing your interior in your team colors looks pretty cool as well. Plenty of space to put stuff in it. If you fold down those rear seats, you may have more space than any other vehicle in its class or close to it. And again, the Kia EV9 Landing is just a sharp-looking car, and it has a frunk. Look at that. It's not the biggest frunk. It's not the most beautiful frunk you ever seen, but you have a front. You can put stuff in the front. And that's a good thing, my friends. When you have a front, you can tell people, get the front out of here. Not enough to put somebody in. The design cues on this vehicle are exceptional. Absolutely beautiful. And plenty of power in this thing, plenty of torque. Got about 280 mile range on this vehicle. I lost my notes, so I don't have all of my notes in front of me. About 280 mile range on this vehicle. And again, as I say, quiet. And the Kia EV9, as most of the Kia electrics that you drive, if not all of the Kia electrics, are spectacular vehicles. The Kia and Hyundai, the Koreans, Genesis, and so on and so forth, have gotten this thing down. They know exactly what they're doing. So if you're in that market for an electric vehicle, these are certainly vehicles that are worth going by the showroom and looking at. Oh, by the way, this one was in the high 70s. If I let me see if I quickly have the. I can't believe that I lost the. No, I don't have it. But the I think we were in 78,000. You know what? Before we go, I'm going to see if I can pick it up for you real quick because I want you to know how much this thing was or is. It really, as I said, a spectacular vehicle. So many different tech things in here as well. The cost of this, the sticker price on this particular vehicle is, come on. Sorry about this, but I somehow lost my, 74,230 as it sits with the nicer paint, which is a beautiful color, the carpeted floor mats, the carpeted cargo mat with seat back protection and a towing hitch. All of that, again, in this vehicle. And just so I get it right, I want to make sure that this particular vehicle, when you match it up against SUVs that are more money, it's really where the value comes through on this thing. 60 miles per hour in 4.5 seconds. Cornering G-force gives you 0.84 in cornering, which beats the Mercedes or the Range Rover. And one of the things that I also liked about this thing is it charges from 10% to 80% in about 25 minutes at a DC fast charger, 350 kilowatt fast charger. So you are going to want to give this thing a look if you're in the market for an electric vehicle. And by the way, it also has the onboard power generator that if there's a blackout, it can power a refrigerator or an AC unit in case of a power outage. So, again, another advancement toward the step of having your car as an emergency outlet for when things get when power goes out. And by the way, might I just ask one more thing, add in this, that it was one of the quietest vehicles that I have driven in the whole electric experience. So that's the Kia EV9, a spectacular electric vehicle, and something that again, if you're in the market for an electric vehicle, it's certainly a big electric vehicle we're talking about. If you're in the market for a big electric vehicle, you should be taking a look at it and saying, oh, you know what? That's something I should take a look at. The Koreans are doing electric right. And I'm going to do you right by getting off of your computer. I thank you so much. Thanks to Kirby Arnold. Thanks to for joining us from Indianapolis. Thanks to everybody who's listening. I really appreciate it. We will catch up with you next week for another edition of Drive Time Radio. Want to thank my good friend George Jackson. If you are somebody who owns a business and you're looking for promotional items for your business, George is the person to see. Check him out at gjpromo.com on the web, or you can catch up with George Jackson Promo on Facebook. And he will treat you right if you are looking for stuff that will make your business more memorable in the minds of your customers. Thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Drive Time. We will catch up with you next week at 11 o'clock in the morning, if the Lord's willing. Next Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning, if the Lord's willing and the creek don't rise. Have a good week, folks.